Well, hey there. Welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. Today, the movie I'm reviewing is called The Optimist. This touching film releases in theaters on March 11th, 2026. It's rated PG-13, mostly for thematic elements, some language, and emotional intensity. I'll give you some more detailed tips for parents here in just a minute. It's an hour and 42 minutes, and my overall movie review mom grade is an A. Now, I often feature a product that has to do with the film that I'm reviewing. And so if you want to see it, click on the link down below in the description. And it's a link to watch a movie about the Auschwitz Museum in Poland. That comes up in this film. I'll get to that in just a minute. It's not, a fun place to visit, although I'm finally visiting it this fall in 2026. I've been to Dachau, which is a concentration camp in Germany, but I haven't been to this all-time famous one. And so I'm kind of looking forward to it, if that sounds bizarre to want to see a concentration camp. But my husband has ancestors from Poland. So we're taking a trip to Germany and Poland this fall, and we're going to, see how we can survive the experience. That probably sounds really bad because people actually died and some survived. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, in a nutshell, The Optimist is a quiet, character driven drama that pairs the gruff intensity of Stephen Lang with the emotional authenticity of Elsie Fisher. It's a story about unexpected friendships, second chances, and what it really means to choose hope when life has not gone the way that you had planned. This isn't a flashy film. It's very reflective, very grounded, and meant to linger with you long after the credits roll, and it will. I'm so grateful that the studio sent me this press screener so that I could review the film because I was especially intrigued by this topic. The story is about a man who was imprisoned in Auschwitz-Birkenau, the concentration camp that's famous from Poland, as I mentioned, but where 1.1 million Jews were murdered. Visiting Auschwitz is and has been on my destinations to see list. And it's not going to be a fun tourist day, but I still want to go. As I mentioned, I visited Dachau many years ago and I've never forgotten it. So I want my family to experience this particular trip. So, set against the majestic landscapes of Northern California and the redwood trees that seem to give us proper perspective about our life because those trees are so tall, the film centers on the unexpected bond between an ailing Holocaust survivor and a troubled teen as illness forces him to confront the silence he has kept, even from his own family. He forms a surprising friendship with Abby, who's played by Fisher, a teenager navigating her own emotional fractures. Through their growing connection, Herbert is inspired to finally share his truth, opening a path toward empathy, forgiveness, and renewal for both of them. The film was directed by Finn Taylor, who was also the screenwriter. And by the way, this is based on a true story. Tips for parents. The film definitely deals with mature emotional themes, including grief, regret, strained family relationships, love and loss and death. There's some strong language and moments of emotional heaviness that may be too intense for younger viewers. And I don't think it's appropriate for younger kids anyway because of the topic. But older teens and certainly adults who will be better equipped to appreciate the message and the pacing of this movie will enjoy it. Kids are going to be bored and they might even be confused by all of the flashback scenes that tell the backstories of two very different people. There is some profanity, as I mentioned. We see a room full of naked boys and men, Jewish prisoners, but they all cover their body private parts with their hands, so you don't see anything, thank goodness. We see a room also filled with naked dead bodies, although again, the private parts are sort of manipulated so that you don't see any details. We do see bloodied Jewish prisoners in despicable condition, suffering, starving, wounded, killed. not as bad as reality. And when I went to Dachau and I saw the pictures of the bodies, they were not carefully placed so you wouldn't see stuff. You know, we the pictures are very graphic. In this film, it's toned down enough, I think. Some of the themes that are illustrated in the movie very well are my all-time favorite theme for a movie is hope. And this film illustrates hope in a big way. Other themes are redemption, the power of optimism, obviously, which is where the title gets its name from, intergenerational friendships, healing from loss, choices, identity, suffering, guilt, and secrets. So here's the list of things that I really liked about this film. First of all, Stephen Lang delivers a restrained, deeply human performance that shows vulnerability beneath this hardened exterior. He looks fantastic, and I thought he did an outstanding job. And it was really nice to see him in something other than another Avatar movie, you know? Elsie Fisher continues to prove she is one of the most emotionally honest young actresses working in Hollywood today. Her big breakout role was in the film Fifth Grade. Did you ever see that one? She does a fantastic job in this as well. Luke David Blum is also terrific in this and has a bright future in film if he wants it. The relationship between the two leads feels authentic and earned, maybe a little rushed, but still earned, although their quick readiness, I think, to share their past with one another kind of surprised me, especially with a teenager, you know, because it's hard to get sentences out of them sometimes. But sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger other than with our loved ones. And so I thought that part was believable. The ensemble cast includes Leah Pipes, Ben Gurens, Ursula Parker, Slavko Sobin, Stella Stocker, Oscar Hess, Robin Weigert, and everyone all around just did a fantastic job. The film takes its time, allowing moments to breathe instead of rushing emotional payoffs. And some people will call that slow pacing. But if you are up for that slow, meandering journey, I think you'll be richly rewarded. Ultimately, there's a hopeful message without being too preachy or unrealistic. And we get to spend time in Prague. What a gorgeous city. I had the great pleasure of going there for the very first time last year with my husband. I've had friends tell me it's the most beautiful city in all of Europe. And so I had very high expectations because I've been all over Europe, but I wasn't disappointed. Although it's hard to choose what would be the number one most beautiful city in Europe, but this one is up there. I thought it was really beautiful. And even though I've been to Europe a bunch of times, I could go a million more. There's so much to see and do there. I just love Europe. Keep watching, by the way, during the final footage or the rolling credits to see real footage of the real Herbert Kurt Heller. So inspirational. After decades of silence, Heller became a beloved educator and speaker, sharing his testimony with thousands of students and community groups and receiving the prestigious Jefferson Award for Public Service. And so we get to see little clips of him at the end, which is awesome. Now, there were only really just a few small things that I didn't like about the movie. First of all, like all Holocaust films, this movie is not easy or comfortable to watch. It's absolutely insane that some people believe that the Holocaust didn't happen or wasn't as bad as the Jews claim, which I know has become really popular with millennials and Gen Z. They're like, no, not that many people died. I'm like, crack a book. I mean, I know not everything in books is true, but still, we really need to interview as many Holocaust survivors as we can because we're losing them fast. My twin sister had just the incredible honor of her lifetime to be one of the service nurses that escorted the American airplane pilots and some Army ground people that were in Hawaii in Pearl Harbor. No, what am I saying? She was in France. Sorry, Normandy. wrong moment. She went to Normandy and all over southern France, or the west coast of France, and just had an incredible experience meeting some of these American soldiers and hearing about their sacrifices and what they experienced during World War II. Anyway, as I mentioned, the pacing may feel slow for viewers who prefer plot heavy or action driven films. That is not this movie. Some of the supporting characters feel a little underdeveloped. I mean, really, the heart of the film is these two characters, this Holocaust survivor and the teenager, and they're both struggling with identity and the meaning of life and trauma and all of that. And so it's really intriguing and rewarding to watch them help each other and work through all of those things. So whenever I watch movies, I write down funny lines and interesting lines just so you can kind of get a taste for the dialogue and script writing quality and all of that. So for funny lines, there are a few dry, understated moments, but they're mostly delivered through Stephen Lang's character, and that provides some welcome levity, but the comedy is definitely not the focus of this movie, and there's not a whole lot of it either. However, I did write down a lot of interesting lines. Several lines about optimism versus realism stand out, offering thoughtful insight into how life experiences shape our outlook for sure, and how choosing hope is an act of courage. So here are some of the specific lines I wrote down. So Elsie Fisher's character says, people don't show their real selves, which is absolutely true. Herbert Heller, who's the real life person, played by Stephen Lang, said, it's too much, as he's trying to tell her, she wants to hear a story, and he's like, no, it's too much. She's like, no. So he starts to tell her, and she's just kind of like, oh, kind of puts things in perspective when you hear what some of them went through. And then, we complain when we have to stand in a long line at Target at the cashier. You know what I mean? It puts things into perspective. Another line Stephen Lang said, his character said, is, quote, even between the fences, we still found ways to care for each other. And he's talking about being in the concentration camp with the fences surrounding them and even blocking them off within the concentration camp. And he says, it may seem foolish taking risks for such small gestures, but these little resistances made us feel alive. And it's just awe-inducing. Another line he says is, Auschwitz was a place that offered very few choices. I choose to believe in my father. Or he said, I'm sorry, I chose to believe in my father. Because she's asking him, all of the choices and the things that he did or didn't do. And his father had so much hope. And so he chose to believe in his father, knowing his father could have been wrong, that they were all going to die. And then he said, that lie kept me alive because his father didn't know what the outcome was going to be. Another conversation that they have is when he says to Abby, the girl, he says, you have to decide how you're going to live your life. And so she says, but what are you supposed to do when you've done something unforgivable? And he says, you forgive yourself. I loved that conversation. That was so great. And then another line that she says is, someone said that secrets are like a prison, as they're talking about his experience in the concentration camp in that prison. And the choices that she's made have imprisoned her or have caused her to perceive that she is in a prison and can't get out. And they have some really profound conversations, and I loved that. Now, as I watch this, I'm going to give you some movie recommendations of films that I instantly thought of. One of my all-time favorite World War II movies is Life is Beautiful. It bring tissues. It's going to make you cry. It is so touching, and yet there are a lot of humorous moments as well. And I don't even want to give it away. It came out many years ago when one of my sons was the age of the little boy that is in the movie. And he and his father end up in a concentration camp. And his father doesn't want him to realize they're in this horrible situation. And so he makes it like a game. And it's just breathtaking. Another one is, of course, Saving Private Ryan for realism, even though I've never been in a war or World War II for that matter. It just seems so realistic, and the choices that are made and not made in that film, so incredible, but very much rated R. Another recent movie that I thought of that came out last year is called A Real Pain. And it's a story of two guys. I think they were cousins. I can't remember. Cousins or brothers? Cousins, I think. And they go to, I want to say, Poland, and they also go to Auschwitz. And because their grandmother, now I'm forgetting the details, but you can see my full review. But anyway, they had an ancestor that was there. I think it was the grandmother, and they're trying to um, go there in her memory and understand her and honor her. And then another really recent movie that came out last year, the end of last year, is called Eleanor the Great, also about Holocaust survivors, but with a really interesting, comical, and heartbreaking twist. So definitely check out my review of that one. All right. Thank you so much for sticking around. Have a fantastic day. Subscribe, like, you know the drill. I really appreciate your support, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.